Welcome to Craft Shop, Brad here. Today I'm going to be going over the tools that I would recommend to somebody who is just getting started knife making. First, let's start with the forge. You're going to have to quench your knife at some point. I also recommend normalizing and annealing. I'm not going to go into depth about what any of that means right now. I'll have a video at the end of this one that should cover most of your questions. If you've got money to spend, you can always buy a forge, but there are a handful of very helpful tutorials online to help you make just about any style of forge you want. And there are a handful of different fuel types: propane, natural gas, coke, charcoal, coal, the list goes on, and they all work pretty well. I have both a propane forge and a coke forge. The propane forge provides the most even heat, and the coke forge definitely gets a lot hotter. And if I'm not careful with it, I can easily melt steel. Along with the forge, you'll also want a heat treat oven. If you've got money to spend on a fancy kiln, that's great. Otherwise, a kitchen oven or a toaster oven can work pretty well. All right, let's move on to creating the profile and actual shape of your knife. You can do stock removal or you can forge your blade. If you're forging your blade, most of the shaping will be done at the anvil with a hammer. I'm not going to go over blacksmithing tools in this video, but I should have something posted soon. It takes a little bit more work, but there is a plus side to forging your blade. Not only is it a great feeling to hold on to the ancient art form, but you also get to save a little bit of steel in the process because you're drawing it out and shaping it kind of like clay rather than cutting it out, which is what stock removal is. Whether you're forging your blade or doing stock removal, a great tool to have on hand is an angle grinder. I'd recommend picking up some cutoff discs, some grinding discs, and if you want to attempt doing your bevel with an angle grinder, I'd recommend trying a flap disc. Belt sanders, bench grinders, steel bandsaws, these can all be great tools to help you achieve your perfect profile. Now let's go ahead and talk about making the bevel. Files will always work. If you're looking to save a little bit of money or just stay away from power tools, a good mill bastard file with a solid heat treat is going to be your best friend. Common brands are Stanley, Dickman, Simmons, Nicholson. Any old files that you can find at like a flea market, such as Kearney & Foote. Kearney & Foote is a brand that was bought out by Nicholson in the early 1900s, and I think they still marketed under the name Kearney & Foote until like the 70s. But those are great files. Anything Nicholson is generally 1095 high carbon steel. So if it ever goes bad, it's great steel for a knife. I'm not sure about other companies, but I assume they all use a high carbon steel of some sort. If you decide to use files for your bevel, I highly recommend making some sort of filing jig. I've got one here in the shop. You've probably seen it in some videos. A filing jig will help you keep a consistent angle as well as save you a lot of energy. Using files on a larger project can be a lot of work. Another tool to use is a belt sander. This has got to be the most popular option. The most common entry-level sander would have to be the 1x30. I've got one here. I started on one. They work great. If you want to upgrade, go for the 4x36. They require a little bit of modification. I posted a video on my channel modifying mine if you want to check that one out. And the most popular option, especially for the more advanced knife maker, is a 2x72. Most of these can house multiple contact wheels and prove to be more powerful and versatile than the other sanders. And grinding jigs can be used hand in hand with belt sanders. Another plug to one of my other videos, I did post a video on how to make a grinding jig. Check that one out. There's a whole ton of other videos online too, probably some that are better than mine, so I would do some searching before you choose which one you want to build. Overall, files and belt sanders are probably the best option for putting a bevel on your knife. I've used angle grinders, bench grinders, disc sanders, a few other things. Those can work, but they're not necessarily the safest or best tool for the job. High grit sandpaper, Japanese water stones, a good leather strap, these things will help you achieve that sexy polished edge. Now let's go ahead and talk about drilling holes. If you're going to be doing a full tang knife, you're most likely going to have pins going through to hold the handle in place. The most common tool for this is a drill press. You can also use a hand drill. If you're a badass, you can use a hand crank drill, but I recommend a drill press. If you're blacksmithing, you're forging your blade, you can also punch holes. I've done that before, but I still recommend drilling holes at the press. You don't need to have a very expensive drill press. if you're gonna put your money anywhere, I would say put it into some good drill bits and a little bit of cutting oil. And when it comes to cutting pins to length, I would recommend a hacksaw. Let's talk about cutting handle material. If you're doing a full tang knife, you'll need 2 pieces. These are referred to as scales. If you're doing a hidden tang knife, the handle is referred to as a block. If you need to resaw a block to create 2 scales, I recommend using a bandsaw. You can also use a handsaw. I'd recommend a rip saw with a thin kerf. That way you don't sacrifice too much material during the cut. When you're ready to glue up your handles, you'll want a high quality epoxy. I'm not gonna dive into saying which is best, but I'm currently using Titebond 5-minute heavy duty epoxy. It's a 2-step resin and hardener. Some tools that work great for shaping handles are belt sanders, disc sanders, oscillating spindle sanders, Dremel tools. Files also work great. I recommend a rasp or a 4-in-hand, and high grit sandpaper and a buffing wheel are great tools to have to help you achieve a final finish. So we've covered forges, profiling tools, beveling tools, drilling tools, epoxy, and handle shaping tools. I won't be going over sheath making in this video, but I plan to soon. I do have a video on my channel going over every step that I take to forge a knife from start to finish, as well as a video on how to make a leather sheath from start to finish, every single step. And if you're looking into making a knife grinding jig, I do have a video going over how to make a knife grinding jig. And I'm constantly uploading more videos. If you have questions on any tools or techniques, please leave comments down below. I'll do my best to get back to every single one of you with the knowledge that I currently have. I hope some of you found this video helpful. Knife making can really turn into a rabbit hole when it comes to tools and different techniques. It really just takes some patience and trial and error to find out what works for you. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos and let me know if this one was helpful for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.